Hello and welcome to the first episode of Third Stringers, a show about tech in sports. We believe tech in sports is going to revolutionize all the major sports along with health and fitness. Hello everyone, I'm Paolo Del Nibletto, the editor of Tech in Sports, and I'll be your host today. And with me here today is the Carleton Kid, none other than Mandy Kovacs.
Hello.
And for you Laverne and Shirley fans, we have the big Radu, Alex Radu.
How's it going?
So we encourage you all to visit our Tech and Sports site on itbusiness.ca. Just go there and click on the sports tab and you'll find all this great content. We're going to be talking about a few of those content items here today. So we have a power pack lineup starting with virtual reality in broadcasting in the Super Bowl and in Hockey Night in Canada. Alex also has an interview with former NHL defenseman Mike Weaver.
Oh.
And Mandy has an interesting story about an Uber/Tinder type app about choosing a personal trainer. So we're going to swipe to the left and talk about virtual reality first. But before we do that, we are going to start with some trivia. And I like to call this incredibly hard trivia. So since it's our first ever show, I was thinking about the number 1. And I want to ask you guys and the audience out there, who's the greatest athlete to wear the jersey number 1? Any guesses so far? Well, while you tootle this, what are you going to say?
This is a subjective.
Of course it is. Very subjective. But I'm going to prove my point at the end of the show because I doubt you guys are going to get it.
Okay.
But while you think about a guess, we're also going to be discussing the upcoming trade deadlines in the NBA and NHL from a data analytics perspective. And Alex will also have a review of a earbud from Jabra. And we're also going to pick who's going to win this weekend based on the numbers. So sit back, don't panic, because the third stringers are coming into the game. All right, any guesses on jersey number 1? Greatest athlete.
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, the first person that came to mind was Roberto Luongo.
Of the Florida Panthers, number 1,
yes.
Great goalie.
He is.
You?
I'm going to go with the one Oscar Robertson.
Oscar Robertson, maybe one of the top 5 greatest NBA players of all time.
I think so.
Yep, and he wore number 1. He didn't win a lot of championships, though.
Yeah, but championships don't necessarily equate greatness, Paolo.
Yeah. If I didn't know the answer, I would go with Gianluigi Buffon, the starting goalie for Juventus and Italy.
Yep.
He's 40 years old and he's still the best goalie in the world. Safest hands in all of Europe, as they say. So we're going to find out who that special athlete is later on in the show. So let's get started with virtual reality in broadcasting. And the Super Bowl this year on Fox Sports featured a 360 immersive view with virtual reality. And what they did was if you had a Samsung Gear or an Oculus Rift and you downloaded the app from Fox Sports, you could watch the Super Bowl in near-time reality, so not real-time, from a VIP box. And just last week, the Calgary Flames and the Vancouver Canucks played a game in 360 virtual reality on Hockey Night in Canada. But that was through, you had to go to the beer store and buy Molson Canadian beer and get a cardboard virtual reality headset, and you had to add a PIN code. So it wasn't a great experience with that, but there's going to have a few more games down the pike. And also Intel has virtual reality for instant replay. And anyways, what do you guys think of virtual reality in broadcasting?
Well, I think that's probably where virtual reality is going to go. Right now it's all gaming, and those are very single player, so to speak, experiences. But the real proof in the pudding with VR is going to be when you're going to be able to pay $50 and you're sitting front row virtually at the Super Bowl, Stanley Cup Finals, NBA Finals. And I think that's going to probably be where the proof of the pudding is. So while I don't necessarily think that any of the VR that we're seeing now in regards to sports is worth it, I wouldn't change it necessarily over my normal experience. I think maybe 5-10 years down the line that might change.
I think it'd be incredibly useful, and especially in the big markets, you know, where they struggle having enough tickets for everyone. You know, the Leafs, for example, if you want to get season tickets, I think it's a 25-year waiting list.
Sure.
That would be great if you could pay, you know, however much, $200 a year,
Right.
to have like that sort of view, but just virtual reality. That'd be a game changer.
Yeah, and you know, if you ever done any of the virtual reality videos, it's quite great. Like, I mean, I took one where I was in a roller coaster going down, and you know, you turn to the left and you see who's riding next to you, and I thought that was really cool. And I think if you're in a sporting event or maybe a live concert, and you see, you know, maybe, you know, you're a fan from the opponent's team on one side, and you know, maybe someone else who's rooting for your team on the other side. I think that'd be very, very cool. So let me give you the lineup of upcoming games for Hockey Night in Canada. The Leafs and Habs this Saturday, February 25th. The Red Wings will face the Oilers on March 4th. Flames, Winnipeg Jets, March 11th. And the last VR matchup on Hockey Night in Canada will be Ottawa Senators and the Montreal Canadiens, March 25th. Should be really, really interesting. Also, I like the way Intel has developed basically a new way of showing instant replay. They tried it in a college football game where you had the eyes of the quarterback when he threw a touchdown pass. And I think that will definitely aid in terms of the broadcast.
Yeah. If you could see from a player's point of view, I would be interested in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the proof in that is the ref cams at the World Cup of Hockey in September.
But those are GoPros, right?
I think so.
Well, that exists on the CBC broadcasts.
Are they in every game now, though? Or just select
At least
ones?
this past Saturday.
Yeah. They did have it with the NHL. Some, I guess, for major broadcasts like Hockey Night in Canada, I think they would have that. I think the other issue is why I don't think we'll see it come very, very quickly. Well, there are two issues. I think, first of all, the cameras. It's going to be very, very cost intensive for all the broadcasters to put these cameras in place in major stadiums. And the other thing is there's probably going to be a paywall where it's going to be a pay-per-view to watch this. They did try it on a college football game. Fox Sports did late, I think in September or October. And I think it was like $20. They only got 38,000 people subscribing to it. So I think it's going to be a slow build, but very, very exciting.
Yeah, I think so. It'll be interesting to see how much it costs. And you're right about the cameras. For all these big events, you're going to have to set up not just 5 cameras. It's going to be in the dozens of cameras to make these things work. So we'll see how cost effective that is down the line.
Okay, let's move on to our next story. Alex, you had an interview with former NHL defenseman Mike Weaver, who played around 700 games, some for the Montreal Canadiens, the Florida Panthers. What's that story all about?
So Mike Weaver and his co-founder Rob Tallis, who is the Florida Panthers goaltending coach.
Wasn't he the guy who had to dress in an emergency situation because both Roberto Luongo and Al Montoya were injured during a Maple Leafs game, I think 2 years ago?
I was at that game.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is an interesting fun fact
Yes.
about these two.
So what's Mike Weaver up to?
So they've founded a web app called Coach Them. So Coach Them is a kind of an organizer for coaches in hockey. And so they're going to be able to organize their practices, their drills, their plays, and be able to keep them on one device or any device that they're using. What's interesting about it is that they chose not to do a downloadable app that you would get from an app store. It's on a web app. So you just go to any browser, so it could be on your phone, your tablet, desktop, whatever, laptop, and you type in Coach Them, you go right there, you sign in, and you're good. Just need browser, just need Wi-Fi data, you can use it that way. And it's really just going to be a database for coaches to become a little more organized and also share their drills with others. Really kind of create a community of coaches so that they can learn from one another, and you can have some of these POE coaches use these drills that NHL players are using. And
So how much
NHL
does it
coaches.
cost?
So right now it's going to be $5 per month for a total annual cost of $60 a year,
Oh, that's nothing.
which is peanuts.
Yeah.
So it's definitely very very affordable for any coach, just $5, and you don't have to write something on a napkin, which was what Mike Weaver was telling me, where he would see these peewee coaches, these young coaches who would come together 5 minutes before practice or a game, and they would have plays or drills written on a napkin or something like that, and then they're all trying to be like, okay, this is what's best and what we should do, and that's not how you create a very good and organized team.
Right.
So so it stems from both of these two guys have been putting on training camps over the summer. They've really been working towards helping youth hockey players for the last more than a decade. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes, what this app does.
Who's their target audience for this?
Off the top of my head, I would think mostly amateur coaches.
Okay.
But the NHL system for this as well is quite antiquated. It's not great. So we'll have to see. I'm not sure if any professional teams would adopt this, but you do have leagues maybe in like the ECHL or leagues in Europe or across the world who don't necessarily have the greatest system, but they can find something right here to help them out.
Is this all tactical plays, or is it also fitness and training?
So it's just
you improve your shot.
Yeah, so you're not going to be improving your shot or anything like that.
Okay.
It's not going to be like video tutorials on how to take how to take the best slap shot or something like that. It is mostly just going to be a database for you to store your apps, which can be confidential if you choose, because you don't want to necessarily broadcast what you're doing to your rivals.
Your game plan.
But you are able to share. There's a marketplace that currently has drills and practices from Mike Weber and Rob Tallis, which are NHL caliber drills and practices. And he's been reaching out to his friends and his colleagues around the league. So we'll see who else gets in there, but this is just the beginning from what I'm told. So who knows to see what the future is with this one, but it looks quite promising to me.
And what platforms does it run on? Does it run on iOS and Android?
Yeah, so
and Windows?
because it is that web app,
web app,
it's
of course.
just it's on anything with a browser. So
with a browser,
Android, iOS, Windows,
Very smart. Very
anything.
smart.
Yeah.
That's handy.
Okay, so let's move on to Mandy's story. The Uber
another app.
Tinder app to choose a personal trainer. What did you find out?
Yeah, so it's called Flex, and it's a Toronto startup. It was started by two guys. They went to a gym. They kind of walked around. They were interested in getting a year-long membership, but didn't like how long the commitment was. They didn't like how expensive it was, and they just really didn't think the facilities were great. They didn't think the people talking to them were that good either. So they thought, well, why not start up a better alternative? So they decided on an app called Flex. And right now it's just serving the Toronto region and part of the greater Toronto area, but they do hope to expand it. They're especially trying to get to some of the bigger cities across Canada. And it's a free app you can download, and once you get it, put in your location, and you can essentially swipe through the personal trainers that are on it that have agreed to work with this company. And you can choose them based on what workout you want, when you want it, and where you are. And it's really handy, really great. I got to speak with some of the guys, and they all love it. So it's wonderful.
So how do they vet the personal trainers? So let's talk about safety first.
Yes, right. So I mean, the app launched in the beginning of December, but before that, going back, they put out a call for personal trainers who wanted to join, and they got over 300 applicants. So I mean, it's not like they had a shortage of really good people wanting to work with them. And they personally vet every single one. They go through a phone interview. They go through an actual training session with the trainer to make sure that they're acceptable. And once they go through that, then they go through a safety check. They go through a police background check, and if they can pass all that, then they're now officially a trainer with Flex app.
Costs.
Yes, so one session you can get for $70. That's the flat fee, and you pay online through the app. But they also offer packages. So the higher session package that you get, which I believe you can come in 3, 5, 9, 18 and higher. And the more that you get, the cheaper each session actually becomes. And the great thing with this as well is that you can actually share this with friends. So you can have up to 4 people in a session, and you can split it all with them.
So do these friends, can they sort of analyze their stats? Is there a way of tracking like health data?
I think you would just have to use your own apps for that.
Okay.
But there is a rating system on the app to rate the personal trainer.
Okay. Alex, you have a question?
Yeah. So what kind of are these just generic kind of fitness apps or fitness trainers? Or
Well, I mean,
are
they
there
have
specialties?
a really wide selection actually. So I got to speak with Andrew Tyson, and he is kind of known as the boxing guy because on his personal time, he does boxing at another gym in the Toronto area. So if you want to go boxing, you can go kickboxing. You can just have a general fitness session, or you can even do yoga, Pilates, like really anything you want.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool.
And then, so the rating system, I imagine, is quite similar to Uber, where they can
so.
rate you. Can they rate the person who's hiring them as well?
I don't think it goes both ways, but you can rate the trainer based
Okay.
on 5 stars.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else on this story?
No, I mean, it's Toronto again. It's not Canada-wide yet, but they're hoping to be.
So that's their future plans.
Yes.
Okay. Sounds really, really interesting. And not as salacious as the Tinder
No.
swipe left.
They said it's
swipe
less
right.
awkward than you'd think. I mean, they
Okay.
are professionals, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we're also going to be doing a lot of product reviews on Third Stringers. And Alex, you got a chance to review a very unique earbud from not the most unique type of sports wearables company in Jabra. They're usually in the commercial market on call centers. So tell us about this new product.
So the Jabra Elite Sport is their new wireless kind of coaching earbuds that you would use when you're at the gym, when you're working out. And so what's really interesting about them, and I've got the two right here, and I'll pass them around for you guys. They're quite small, but they're not as small as
Can you see this?
For those audio listeners, Paolo just tried to
I have the left ear.
show the earbud.
Interesting.
Okay.
So what's interesting about these is first I want to talk about the price. So they are $349.99 in Canada.
All right.
So right off the bat here, you gotta be aware these are high-end headphones, and they're targeting an elite training audience. It's not just gonna be for your average person who goes to the gym and just goes for 30 minutes, maybe does some treadmill. You're not gonna get what you need out of that.
Right.
Unless, of course, you just have $350 lying around.
Right.
So what's interesting about this, there's 2 microphones in each earpod. First one that's aimed at your voice, and second one that's going to track external sounds. And the battery life's about 3 hours.
Okay.
So what's interesting here is that there's a coach in your ear. So it'll tell you really, well, honestly, kind of what a lot of fitness apps tell you. But they'll be able to give you suggestions in your ear right when you're running, for instance. Let's say you're training for a marathon.
Right.
You can get the race time predictor.
Okay.
So it can tell you exactly what your pace is, exactly how you're running and all that. So
Right.
so it's very useful in that sort of sense. But again, this is like very highly
So if I wanted to run a marathon under 4 hours,
Yeah.
and I'm training for this, this is going to tell me, hey, Paulo, you're not going to make it right now at 5 hours and 30 minutes. You got to pick up your pace or do this, right? Basically.
Yeah, exactly. Now the robot won't be as casual as that, but it will. It
So
will.
be all yelling and screaming.
It
right?
will tell you that that's how that works. And so it is IP67. So it is water and dust resistant. So it should be good with sweat, because that's really, you're not going to be going swimming with these. But
What about rain?
it should be good with rain too. But they are in your ear too, so they are kind of protected against the rain.
Okay.
But it does come with a 3-year warranty anyways, because just in case, I mean, if you sweat a lot or something happens,
Right.
maybe drop it. If you drop it in a puddle of water, a 3-year warranty is pretty good. I don't know too many people who have used the same headphones for 2 years, let alone 3.
No, they're
So-
they're pretty much replaceable now. Earbuds.
Yeah,
Disposable,
exactly.
I should say.
Yeah. So again, they're very useful if you're going for that elite training experience. Would it necessarily replace a personal trainer like the Flex app? I'm not sure. I think you probably would want a personal trainer, like if you really want to train for a
Are they
marathon.
motivational, that coaching?
Does
Does it tell you, yeah, you can do this?
No.
No? Oh.
It's not going to be pumping in motivation in your. But the thing is that you would be listening to music. most
true.
people are listening to music when they work out.
a good point.
So you will hear that. And what I found was quite interesting actually, And especially if you work out with others, you might, in between sets, you might, be talking to the person you're with. If you take one of them out of your ear, pauses the music, which to me which to most people probably isn't that important of a feature. But to me, I was like, this is awesome. I don't have to go to my phone. I don't have to pause it. And then the moment you put it back in, it starts again. And I just thought, like, it's such a feature you wouldn't market, but I liked it quite a lot. It's an interesting feature.
So some of the background on Jabra, they've been making headsets for a while, and they are able to track a lot of data analytics through it. Now, mainly through call centers. That's their bread and butter core business. With this new product, this is sort of they're branching out into obviously the wearables area. Could this take a call?
So.
If you're running and you're training and, someone calls.
I want to say yes. I did not receive any calls while I was using this.
Okay.
And to me, that's not necessarily something that I was looking for.
Okay.
I believe you could hear who's calling. It would work like any other Bluetooth headphone.
That's what I'm thinking, right.
So I imagine it works exactly like that.
And can it track your health and fitness data?
So it'll track, it has a heartbeat sensor in the headphones. So the moment you put it on, it's tracking your heartbeat. Even if you're not working out, if you're just sitting down, it'll track your heartbeat. And then so you can track your heartbeat, you can track repetitions. It is fairly advanced in those types of analytics. It's not going to be able to tell you nutrition and stuff like that.
Would that drain its battery though? Like how long does this last?
That's why 3 hours is the limit. It does have this handy little case right here, which can add 2 additional charges for up to about 9 hours. So, but 3 to 9 hours is the target range of battery life, which is quite long.
That's
so
a big range.
I tend to lean towards the bottom number as being the more accurate one. So 3 hours. But I don't know too many people who are going through 3-hour workouts. Yeah. So
does the price point in your mind sensible for this kind of product and what the market is?
I think that if you are looking for this type of product, yes. Again, we are in Canada, so the price is a little higher than it would otherwise be. I think if you're not looking for like a coach or any of these fancy features, then I don't know why you would necessarily go after this. They do also have wired coaching options that are cheaper. Right. If that is more to your tone. But I think for $350, I mean, good headphones are expensive. The quality's good. I had no issues using them. Okay. So I think that the price is justifiable. But you do have to really consider, do you need this? Okay. Because like if you're trying, crunching pennies in between workouts, you're not going to want to drop $350 on something that you could. Is just extra. Okay, so let's rate this on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 to 10. 1 to 10? Yeah. No, what? 10 being really good and 1 being poor. How would you rate this? Yeah, I would give them I'll give them a 7.5. 7.5. Just because I ultimately think that it's just an extra thing you need. Okay. And while the quality's great, you could spend $350 on some pretty good headphones as well. Right. That you could also use at the gym. So 7.5.
Okay, great. Let's go to our open discussion part of this episode. And we're going to be talking about the 2 upcoming trade deadlines in the NBA and the NHL. And these are really great for the fans because I think the fans love seeing who's being traded, who's going where, and how their team is going to improve. Or if you're like a Laker fan like yourself, Alex, getting that first-round pick that you didn't have this year for trading Lou Williams.
Hell yeah. Let's tank.
But I'm going to contend that the way teams are now using data analytics to evaluate players, I'm going to contend that it's going to dampen the way teams are going to be using the trade deadline. I don't think we're going to see a whole bunch of trades. I recently took a tour of the first-of-a-kind digital war room built by IBM, and it's for the Toronto Raptors. Now, this place was amazing. It had wall-to-wall screens, all touch-enabled. The boardroom table was basically a big screen, all touch-enabled. and it was feeding lots of data sources, whether it was unstructured data, structured data, internal data, proprietary data. And so the Raptors are using a system from IBM called the IBM Sports Insight Central Solution. And this solution also tracks social media data, which I think is very, very important. I got a chance to interview the president of the Raptors and GM Masai Ujiri, and they're wanting to track more social media data because they want to know about the quality of the individual, not just the stats of the player. And the IBM system uses Watson, the Watson Cognitive Platform, which we all know Watson defeated the Jeopardy champions a few years ago. So I throw the question out to you guys. Will this type of system by IBM dampen the number of trades and players moved in the upcoming 2 deadlines? What do you think, guys?
Want to run with it first?
I mean, I don't think it's gonna change it any more than it already has been the last few years. Trades at the trade deadline. I mean, if you go to the NBA, for instance, you look at this Boogie trade to the Pelicans.
DeMarcus Cousins.
Yeah,
Right.
That's probably the biggest trade deadline trade in the last few years, easily.
Right.
And as much as I'd want a guy like Jimmy Butler to get traded, just for the fan impact, you love those big trade deadline trades. I don't know if we're really going to see anything before the deadline.
Yeah, and I mean, even looking at the NHL too, like you have the Corsi numbers, you have all these advanced stats, but realistically, all these teams have had statistics for a very long time, and they've been using them to make decisions for a very long time.
Right.
I mean, I don't think throwing in a few more numbers there is really going to change much.
But I think the difference is, if you saw this digital war room, is that it's a single pane of view. So you're getting player evaluation and stats and profiles up to the minute, and your whole entire executive team is seeing that. And so the Raptors are using it for the draft and for a trade deadline. And I do think it's going to make a difference because, let's talk about DeMarcus Cousins for a second.
Okay.
He doesn't have a stellar reputation. I think that
Neither
could
do
have
the
been,
Kings, though.
Neither do the Kings, but that could have been tracked. And one of the rumors that was floating around there was that the Raptors were offering Valanciunas in a first-round draft pick.
Which would have been an amazing trade.
Which would have been a better trade for the Kings than what they got, which was basically a bag of pucks and a first-round draft pick.
Yeah.
So obviously that deal didn't materialize. Maybe Masai Ujiri thinking, I don't really need this problem, right? And he's basing it on the information he's gotten from all these data sources.
I don't know. I think specifically when you're talking about Boogie, his reputation of having an attitude, being tough to work with, is coming from a team where you're not hearing that this team is full of angels. Like, you hear all of this negative energy coming from the Kings staff. Like, it's not, if you were hearing that, the Kings are the greatest, the nicest team, they're everyone who
model franchise.
Right. Everyone wants to play for the Kings.
Right.
Then you'd be like, okay, I think that Boogie might be an issue. But then you also hear about Boogie doing so many great things for the community of Sacramento. And it's not this thing that's on the surface because he's not one of those athletes that brings cameras. He just does it.
Right.
So it's tough to see. We haven't seen how he's going to be in New Orleans yet. They haven't played a game.
Right.
As of this podcast recording. So we have to see. For all we know, he is the issue. For all we know, the Kings were the issue, or we find out, which is probably the real case, is both, and that it was a toxic relationship, and now they're separated, and now Boogie can really dominate with Anthony Davis, the brow, on the Pelicans, and maybe push for that 8th seed.
Now you said that he's like the best big man in the NBA.
I think he's one of the top 2 big men, for sure.
Top 2 big men. Okay, here's a stat for you.
Okay.
In his 8 seasons, he's not played one playoff game, which means that they've never made the playoffs.
Okay.
With basically the best big man in the league.
I mean, I think he's the number 2 best big man. I think Anthony Davis is number 1.
Okay, so now they're together, right? But so that's I think these are all very crucial stats for making decisions. And I totally see this dampening the amount of trades. If you look at the number of trades that have happened over the last few years, in 2010, the NHL trade deadline had a plethora of trades, 31 trades, 55 players being moved. And after that year, it's been roughly an average of 16 trades, 20 to 30 players being moved. And the NBA basically the same. And last year, the NBA, I think, only had 11 trades in the trade deadline. So I think these stats are really helping these managers of teams make important decisions, and I don't think they're just going willy-nilly. So I really believe there's not going to be a lot of trades. Man, do you have what's your 2 cents
I mean,
on
I
this?
do think it'll follow the same trend. I don't expect it to really go up. But that being said, in the NHL this year, there's quite a number of like really high-profile players that are on the chopping block, essentially. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me for there to be higher numbers of trades this year, but I think overall it's not gonna
Right, you're talking about the star players for the Colorado Avalanche who are like in last place.
Yes, the Avalanche
you're
are basically
saying-
having a fire sale.
Right. So obviously circumstances
Yeah.
will tend to, I guess, skew the numbers.
Right.
So that's very, very interesting.
Right, so this is essentially a year that is set up to be a good year, but with the trends going down so quickly in the last 7 years, I don't know.
Alex, what do you think? Up or down? Or the same?
I'm going to say the same. I mean, just because in the NBA we saw a big one this just a few days ago. Like
Right.
the Boogie trade, I mean, Boogie's been on the chopping block for the Kings for how many years? 3-4 years?
That's right, yep.
And the same last year they were talking about Butler being traded. So do I actually think that he will now? Maybe.
So you think this could be motivation for other teams?
I mean, we'll see. I want these big trades to happen just because it makes the playoffs more exciting. Like a Boogie and Davis first round against the Golden State Warriors, that's way more exciting than any other 8th seed. Maybe Denver could be exciting too, but that's an exciting first round.
Not really. They're going to be out in 4 straight.
Well, even if they lose in 4 straight,
heard it
which
here first.
they probably would, but you
That's
never
right.
know.
And the Pelicans still have to get into a playoff spot. I believe
Yeah,
they're in 11th
they're only 2.5 games out of it.
2.5.
So that's very reasonable,
Okay.
especially considering the Kings are above them, and you have to assume that the Kings are now going to just sail down the standings. But yeah, no.
Yes.
So for all we know, also LeBron maybe tries to get Melo on the Cavs. Do I think that's ever going to happen? No. But who
No,
knows
I think
what
you need a
LeBron
few
does.
basketballs for that to work. And I think
Yeah.
they still play with one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But I think probably the same.
Okay. Well, we'll update this story as it develops. Okay, before we go to our close, which is who we like this weekend, let's go back to our trivia questions. And we want you guys also out there to give us some answers. We'll read them out when we get them. So who do you think is the greatest athlete to wear number 1?
I'm still sticking with Oscar.
Oscar, and you? Have you changed your
I'll
mind
stick
at
with
all?
Lou.
Lou, okay.
I mean, if anything, he should get number 1 for his Twitter presence.
That's true. And this athlete, there wasn't Twitter when he was playing.
So you're
But
going old school.
I'm going old
All
school.
right.
Jim Thorpe. Now, Jim
Ooh.
Thorpe,
That's a good one.
probably one of the greatest athletes of all time. 2 gold medals. He won in the decathlon, which basically makes you the greatest athlete in that 4-year time span. He played 13 seasons of Major League Baseball, and he's in the NFL Hall of Fame. And so that's why
That's a resume.
I think
Yeah, it's a
jersey
solid,
number
resume.
yeah.
beats out Oscar Robertson. Who's
I think you could have a debate between the two.
Yeah, you
About
blow
Oscar?
Lou out of the water. I'm
Yeah.
I'm admitting
you're
this.
dropping
yeah.
Roberto Luongo.
Roberto Luongo
Okay.
is
Roberto
done.
Luongo, future Hall of Fame goaltender.
As much as I love him,
but
But he never
You
played
win.
baseball.
yeah.
no.
Or ran
I
track.
really hope he doesn't.
Well, I mean, I think Bobby Lou playing baseball would be quite.
You think
funny.
he would switch to Bobby?
I mean, we'll see.
I don't know about that.
Do you think Buffon could play football, or he could play basketball because he's tall?
I mean, he's also 40. I don't know any 40-year-olds who are playing basketball these days.
Well, Jaromir Jagr is playing hockey at 45.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, but
take that back.
Jaromir Jagr is a
Freak of nature.
freak in nature who's
Sure.
somehow
He is.
still performing at that level.
Okay, so we'll keep on doing more trivia. So who do you like this weekend by the numbers? Alex?
So when it comes to the NHL, I really like I picked the Kings versus the Ducks. And I'm going to go with the Ducks here for one reason. If you want to look purely at the stats, if you want to look at Corsi numbers, if you want to look at any type of hockey analytics, you see that the Kings they're doing quite well. Better than the Ducks this year, that's for certain, except for win face-off percentage, which no one beats the Ducks. But the Kings, despite having all of this, still haven't been able to win a game in like 2 years. And the season series is tied right now.
Right.
And they played just last weekend. Ducks won 1-0. And so we'll see. I think these games are becoming a lot more important for both teams. Kings are trying to squeak into that wild card spot, kind of already eliminated unless either the Oilers or the Ducks just go on a huge losing streak. Kind of already eliminated from the Pacific top 3. They might be able to make a wild card spot, so it's important. Both of them need to win, but I think the Ducks have it here. I think that the Kings, they play a very consistent, mediocre game, and the Ducks sometimes can play pretty mediocrely. But
even though the Kings are top 5 in Corsi.
Yeah,
Corsi
but
4.
it's one of those things where they still just can't score. They're not winning games.
They both have issues with that, though. They're both pretty defensive teams.
Yeah, well, the Ducks are quite a defensive team, but I imagine it's going to be a low-scoring game for sure. I give it to the Ducks, and that's not just because I'm a Duck fan, but it mostly is.
Okay. So now we
There's
know
the
he's
bias.
a Duck fan and Laker fan. Mandy, who do you like this weekend?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty obvious, too, here. I'm going to go with that Leafs-Habs game.
Okay.
Which I think will be really interesting. I mean, the East is super tight right now as it is. I believe Montreal has won all the outings against the Leafs.
So I think
so
the Leafs
far this
haven't
season.
beaten the Habs since 2013.
It has been a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the Leafs were a really bad team, too.
Yes, they have been.
Yeah,
The Leafs are actually good right now.
Yeah.
I mean, the Leafs have a very good home record, or not very good, but it's solid. The Habs have a decent away record. It's about even wins and losses, so it could go either way. But if you're looking at their record so far this season, the Habs have definitely dominated.
Right.
The last game, I believe, was 5-3, so it's a pretty solid win in my mind. The Leafs.
So you're picking the Leafs.
Well,
Using the blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while
Essentially.
type of strategy.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean, the Leafs are rolling right now. They've won 2 straight, so I think they have it in them, and they'll be on rest for that game. They're not good in those back-to-back games, but
That's
they'll
right.
have 2
They're
days of
horrible
rest.
on back-to-back games. I
So
hope
I'll
you're
give
right.
it to them.
Okay, I'm going strictly on Corsi 4 numbers.
Okay.
Now Corsi tracks shots, shots attempts, and shots blocked. I'm using Corsi 4 instead of Corsi against, and with that logic, I'm picking the San Jose Sharks to beat the Vancouver Canucks in the late game on Saturday night because the Sharks rank 3rd and the Canucks rank 26, which is basically the bottom of the league. That's a
Paolo.
huge delta of 23 spots. More shots, I think, are going to lead to more goals, and that's why I'm picking the Sharks to beat the Canucks Saturday night.
I mean, I think anybody would pick the Sharks to beat the Canucks, despite what the Corsi stats are.
Yeah.
But
We're
the Canucks are playing at home.
Okay, but the Canucks also suck.
Yes.
And the Sharks are first place in the Pacific. If they were to somehow make the Stanley Cup Finals again this year, I don't think anyone would be that
I feel like we should be apologizing to our
So-
BC viewers right now.
Yeah,
Those
well-
are some strong words.
Sorry, BC, but you guys know it's true.
Yeah.
All right, so that's it for our first ever episode of Third String. We're going to track all these predictions, by the way, and see if we're right. And if we're wrong, we're going to let you know. We really hope you enjoyed the first episode of Third Stringers. Remember to get on to itbusiness.ca, click on the sports page to get more exciting content like this show, Third Stringers. And for Paolo Del Nibletto,
I'm Mandy Kovacs.
Alex Radu.
we're signing off. See you later.